Can I start it? Okay. Okay. So, okay. Time is started to run. Okay. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking time and coming to this session. So, my name is Chulho, as introduced by the moderator. So, I'm a faculty member of the KAIST, and I'm taking the moderator of this session. So, our session will dive into one of the most dynamic and debated topic in the blockchain-related area, restaking. So I'm very honored to be selected as the moderator for this important topic discussion. And however, I'm just an academician. It's going to be a little bit hard to catch up with, recent, real fast development of the industry. So that's why we honorably invited two real specialists from the industry. So Amir Forouzani from the Purple Finance and Joshua Song from the Solayer Lab. So could you please introduce yourself briefly, and then let us just, please appear, how strong expertise you have to be selected as the panelist. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting us here, and it's great. Thank you for having you as the moderator. I'm the CEO and founder at Puffer Labs. We are behind developing the entire Puffer technology and what you see on chain today at Puffer. We started with a focus of really making interacting with yield and gaining yield on Ethereum as seamless as possible, whether you are running infrastructure or whether you're just a user, staker, or capital holder. And that's how we started the Puffer LRT. Later on, we did expand its usability to infrastructure and high throughput transactions. But if there is some sort of a World Guinness record, we have actually reached 1 billion deposits in under 16 days, the only DeFi platform to ever do it on chain. And we hope to keep innovating and pushing the yield and infrastructure forward as much as we can.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for moderating as well, and thanks for having me here. I'm Joshua from Solayer Labs, and a background on Solayer. We are building the world's first hardware accelerated chain, using a lot of techniques from both AI as well as high frequency trading to improve the infrastructure for Solana, and build a layer 1 that's going to be high throughput as well. We started doing restaking on Solana very early on last year, and then we used restaking in a sense to help with transaction throughput and landing transactions on Solana, and that kind of led into what we're building right now with the Infinity SVM L1. But thanks for having me.
Okay, thank you for your introduction. So, as an academician in the business administration, I know what is the restaking means, and conceptually, and I know how popular it has been for the last couple of the years. However, I have the few idea about the shared security and capital efficiency and yield. So, could you please explain a little bit more about what is the restaking is, and then how your business is related to the restaking? Again, with advertisement of your company.
Absolutely. So our foundation of our protocol is the concept of liquid staking. Mm-hmm. Liquid staking means actually having a liquid receipt to your staked asset that is generating yield. This gives you the flexibility of utilizing that liquid stake token in other protocols. This liquid stake token has its own yield baked into it. So imagine if you actually purchased a government bond, but it was liquid and you could have purchased, sold with it, and you can buy anything you want with it. That's the basic of the idea. Restaking is an expansion of that liquid staking on top of, let's say, Ethereum proof of stake. Shared security is something that is offered to the infrastructure and protocols, while capital efficiency and higher yield is offered to one who is staking it. Today, the concept of shared security I do see as a level of service level agreement for infrastructure from one side of it. You are securing the existing infrastructure with another capital that is securing the main infrastructure, which is Ethereum. So let's say in our example today, what's happening is we created this actively validated service, or they have renamed it to actively verified services. We are running a pre-confirmation service. A transaction pre-confirmation service within itself is an entire new infrastructure that is secured by the capital that is securing the overarching infrastructure, which is Ethereum. That's where the shared security comes from. Of course, the traction, the promise of restaking lies within its capital efficiency, which comes from securing multiple infrastructures to get a share of the yield that they're generating in liquid format. And that's where LRTs rose to be and where they are today, and they gain a lot of traction. Even though I would like to say, like, some folks might have been disappointed because they haven't seen the yield really generated on the level that they expected. But I do believe that as the protocols building around shared security evolve, the yield is going to be realized very soon. One of, like us being one of those protocol included, that we expanded to provide more infrastructure services to also boost the yield from our own LRT.
Yeah, I guess how restaking kind of took off, I guess it's a bit of both from people searching for shared security, and shared security has been around in different formats even before restaking got on. I think Polkadot, Cosmos, people were playing around with the idea of shared security. And then people kind of, like, I think EigenLayer first pioneered the approach of taking that and making it into restaking. And also on the other end, we have people searching for additional yield and saying, how can I reuse assets for greater capital efficiency? In terms of where we stand on restaking or how we approached it, very similar in the sense, I like to echo the point of SLAs. In the sense, for us, we did it more of a verticalized manner, mainly because on Solana, there are some differences with how the chain is being structured and how the ecosystem is also being structured. In that capital efficiency, we don't really see that many modular systems being built on Solana in that sense, because the chain itself is very performant already. So it can push a lot of, it's pretty scalable. And you see fewer L2s, rollups, and stuff being built on top of Solana. So we kind of took a different perspective and say, hey, can we use stake and repurpose that or reuse that to have a higher transaction landing chance, right? So can I land transactions more reliably? Which is one of the most, I guess, one of the most sought after use cases on Solana, because once traffic kind of gets up there, the chain sometimes you need additional systems to land those transactions reliably, and that affects the user experience, trading, things like that. So that's where we kind of took the idea of, hey, can we ground it in a really, really useful and valuable use case right off the bat, so that we can return that kind of yield for the user.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So actually, they really just, nicely introduced, every answer, question of the mind. So that's why we are already just for short of the time. I already prepared 5 questions. So let me, so you know that restaking became the multi-billion-dollar project ecosystem. So the first question I have to ask is that, what is the main driver behind of the fast adoption of the every user and every just platform of the restaking platform, restaking? So do you believe that it's going to be truly about related to the shared security, or people just tracing about to the capital efficiency and the yield, or probably just the answer will be both? But you can just feel free to share your opinion.
Yeah, initially when there is a lot of excitement built around a project or a new narrative, of course, folks would like to enter that market and take advantage of it. But really, also another big factor to consider why it grew so fast was this potential of additional yield on top of the existing solutions. The existing solutions at the time were just liquid staking tokens before the restaking came to the game. Liquid staking tokens provided the base yield from Ethereum. It was about 3%, and users were just going away with that. But as soon as another protocol came in and said, without an additional risk for now, I am willing to give you a 0.4, 0.5%, like a 50 basis point extra yield. Everyone realized that, and they wanted to use that 50 extra basis points to actually capitalize on their holdings. When you have higher base yield, you can then take it to utilize it even further on everywhere else. That's why it got very much traction. Of course, the excitement, the potential, the airdrops, everything else helped. But in my opinion, it is here to settle to become one of the main use cases of your assets, especially as we're moving through different spectrums of risk and yield. This is set to actually provide more yield, and more users will realize it very soon and move into it. And that's how I see it's certainly, it might have been skewed initially to more of the seeking that capital efficiency side, but as the time goes on for a longer term, we will see the values of shared security and actual higher underlying yield.
I guess it's a bit of both, and the answer is always like somewhere in between. I think the way kind of restaking came about was at first we started with LSCs. People were saying, hey, now we have staked assets, we made liquid. People went into lending, more into the DeFi space, and people, I guess, thought, hey, could we use things less on the DeFi side? And now we have these liquid tokens. Can we have them participate in the infrastructure layer again? And that unlocked a lot of different use cases. I guess in terms of shared security, I guess I mentioned earlier, it was not a novel concept. It's been around for quite a long while, but it's now that we have this restaking, or like this second layer of liquidity on top of it, that enabled assets that people are already holding, people who are already staking. You have to introduce a new asset. Right? You can now take this and use it to power things in the same ecosystem or even off-chain systems. I think we'll see a convergence of both gradually as the ecosystem kind of like matures over time. I guess the most important part is, what are the use cases that we are supporting, and can they actually return the yield back to the users? And I guess that varies from ecosystem to different use cases. Some people are putting their bets in on AI. Can we make trustless AI systems? Some people are putting their bets on more scalable infrastructure. People are going to higher throughput systems. Yeah, and I guess that's where the market is experimenting. We're seeing where the use cases lie, and once we do get that value, then the redistribution of the other systems kind of kick in place, and we have a fully flashed ecosystem.
Yeah, some of the information of the second question is already given, but even I have to ask this question. So because the Amir, the proper finance is running based on the Ethereum, so you are based on the Solana. So that's why, do you believe that how restaking is different, depending on the what just mainnet or just operating system you are based on?
Yeah, I do believe so. Like right now, Solana's POS hasn't effectively moved into slashing. So like you see a layer one that doesn't have the risk of slashing. So you're certainly just like staking and making some yield based on the protocol emissions or protocol issuance. However, Ethereum does have underlying slashing. So when you're moving from, like, that liquid staking and normal staking has this base slashing, and you're moving to restaking, which effectively you're committing yourself to opting into extra penalties or potential slashing, that certainly makes a difference. Another factor that you can put in here is which might make Ethereum restaking different than Solana restaking is liquid restaking especially is going to become more beneficial. That's why we've seen it getting so much traction on Ethereum, because you're not only getting the yield from proof of stake rewards and protocol issuance, you're now exposed to the rewards coming from the Eigenlayer or Symbiotic or these restaking platforms, which might make it a bit more attractive. Last but not least, the barrier to run a validator on Ethereum is far lower than it is on the Solana. Solana has fewer validator sets. You have to actually get a lot of Sol staked to be able to get a validator running, while on Ethereum, it's minimum of 32 ETH. It's still not very low, but it is relatively low. At Puffer, we managed to even lower that. So your validators, you can run them with 2 ETH right now, and you can also be exposed to restaking rewards as a validator, which not only contributes to more of a network decentralization and security, but also it reduces the barrier of entry of becoming a validator on top of Ethereum. So yeah, these are like the big changes from L1 to L1 on restaking time.
Yeah, I guess differences in architecture and differences in how each blockchain works. The way we kind of saw Solana restaking in that sense is that, hey, I mentioned earlier, Solana doesn't really have that kind of expanded ecosystem. Everything's built on the dApp level. So instead of having like additional rollups and people deploying applications there, most teams decide, hey, I'm just going to deploy it straight on the L1 itself because it can handle that throughput that I need. So we did see that, hey, is there another way we can take restaking, and instead of using it to secure proof of stake networks outside of Solana, we were thinking, can we use that stake and power applications directly on the layer 1 itself? So on Solana, there's this little thing called stake weight of quality of service, which means the more stake you have on your validator, you can help to increase the transaction reliability. So you can land transactions more reliably on chain. So in that sense, we used the stake that we had on our validator to point towards specific applications that we're partnered with to make sure that they have more reliable transaction landing for their end users. And that's where that we could pass some of that yield and some of the rewards back to the to the initial stakers. And to the point on I guess on Solana, that the hardware requirements of running a validator is significantly more. And of course, a lot of work is going to make that a lot more approachable. And I think OpenGlow is an upgrade that's coming up to Solana soon. One of the biggest costs of it is actually running a Solana validator is actually the voting costs. So you're paying Solana to vote on transactions, and that's going to be drastically reduced with the OpenGlow upgrade that's coming up soon. So hopefully that kind of like makes it a lot more approachable to run Solana validators, so you can make it a lot more decentralized. And now that the performance would be, in a sense, very focused on what the applications that you're enabling, in terms of our stake weight quality of service, as well as in the future, are we able to kind of enable more high throughput applications, right? So I think that's where we're looking towards the Infinity SVM L1. We can share a bit more about it down the road.
Okay. Okay, so now, as the professor of the business administration, even I have to ask you this question. So what is your competitive advantage, or what kind of the strategy you are taking to attract more number of the company or more number of the user to use your what is the liquid token, liquid restaking token? So please just share about your strategy, if it is not a confidential.
Of course. That's why we are here. We definitely want to give more knowledge of our protocol to all the users. For the normal day-to-day staker, it is the security of the protocol that for us that is outstanding. Every node, every validator on Puffer actually comes in with their own active insurance and collateral of 2 ETH at least. Unlike any other LSD or LRT in the market, that there's a centralized set of operators that they just come in with a reputation and promise or some sort of a centralized insurance. We have active insurance. So if a slashing happens, instantly the users are safe, none of their funds will be touched, and that's like the biggest competitive advantage that we have our yield product. Additionally, like the way that we built the system, you can permissionlessly participate as a validator, something that does not exist on other LRTs. And last but not least, on an expansion side, we do believe once we have a good user base and we have enough validators on Ethereum to run, we can actually realize the true value of shared security and infrastructure. That's where we started focusing on our fully composable based rollup stack. The idea behind it is we do know that Ethereum ecosystem is heavily fragmented, or started to get fragmentation, unfortunately, due to its fragmented rollup architecture. Like if you go interact with a rollup today, you have to wait for 7 days to withdraw. Rollups are not living up to the expectation in terms of speed and cost just yet. And we can really utilize restaking and shared security to solve for these. That's where we launch our own restaking service, which is a pre-confirmation service. It works based on the concepts of base rollups and very high throughput. We have been able to achieve 300 transactions per second on top of a normal optimistic stack. We have been able to provide real-time proving for it, so you can also withdraw your assets in under 12 seconds from this rollup. We're building the future of app chains replacing smart contracts, something similar to what basically what Cosmos was supposed to become. This, in effect, is going to scale Ethereum, help it onboard much more real-world use case, but also in the end provide all of our users with high yield. So we're creating an entire infrastructure vertical and sort of a feedback loop to get this flywheel of like staking and restaking and realizing the real values of it.
Okay. I guess for us, I guess I'll break it down to three things. I'll guess our competitive advantages. The first one being like just we have invested heavily into the infrastructure and the technology for that. So we, in terms of our Infinity SVM L1, we basically put in a lot of effort to program down to every single chip, so it's hardware accelerated, right? So we have dedicated hardware so that our servers and our blockchain runs really fast. We use a lot of InfiniBand from NVIDIA, a lot of RDMA offloading and similar technologies that high-frequency trading or like colocation firms use to kind of make sure that like this is, I guess when we break down consensus to that level, not many teams are going to go down to that level and program chips, right? So I think that is like one technological like straight up advantage that we would have. So that's where we are able to push the limits of what the layer 1 can do. So we have achieved around 100 to 200K TPS on our DevNet in production. And we are gunning towards 1 million transactions per second. It's a huge task. There's a lot of data, a lot of storage. But I think if we follow along this hardware acceleration route, it's the same way that Web 2 scales. So we're going to scale in that way as well. And the second one is we have a very user-centric, very one of our first principles is always look at what the use case is going to be, what the product's going to be. So whether we choose to build the infrastructure, we also do dog food our own infrastructure. So it's same, a lot of Web2 companies do this where they build the infrastructure and they build their own applications on their infrastructure to take to market. Similar way, we have been dog fooding our own infrastructure, right? Whether it's restaking, we launched our own restaking layer, and then we launched our own application on top of that. Same for SUSD U-bearing stablecoin, and then we built that. Same for Emerald card. We have a crypto card they can spend in real life that's all powered by our own infrastructure. And in this case, when we launch our layer 1, we're also going to build an application from there, and that's where we know what we should do with the chain to build a chain in a way that enables very, very smooth user experiences. Can I go in, log in, and trade without having to confirm 5 things, right? Can I just send the transaction and it happens and it confirms almost instantly? So these are things that building on your own chain gives you a lot of insight into how to structure the infrastructure, and then it all comes together with a very seamless end user experience that you can unlock a lot of new use cases with. And then the last one I would say is just the team. After joining this team, I've just been working like some of the smartest people. Chulho is brilliant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So next question is that it's going to be related to security. So everybody knows that restaking may, because of your just night talk, everybody may understand perfectly about how come restaking will helpful for the improvement of the shared security. But at the same time, probably any kind of the new technology naturally bring about the new types of the vulnerability. So like LRT or slashing, as you mentioned. So what do you think about those kind of the risk? And then, what kind of the effort your company is trying to put to reduce such kind of the potential risk in the future?
Absolutely. So, every higher yield means more risk. There is no higher yield exists on this planet that you think is risk-free or it's just a gift. And it also comes from participating in restaking as well. Of course, you're dealing with a new set of smart contracts, which in itself is a new risk. What we do at Puffer, we take a very pragmatic approach of reducing the risk as much as possible, starting from making sure that smart contracts have enough role-based accesses. We do have time locks. We do have community multisigs to make sure that exploit cannot happen at any level, and we have enough time to take action against it. But additionally, like from the more measurable risk side of things, the restaking services that you are opting into as an LRT are very obvious. And you as an LRT, we would like to have more of an endogenous risk approach to what services we're opting into, that we have exactly a measurable amount of risk in it. We know exactly what are the conditions that a slashing might occur and what are the penalties that might incur to our users. And if the yield is actually worth in opting into this said services. And then, of course, the exogenous risk comes from services that are more market price related. I would categorize them as the higher risk, but also higher reward. Recently, we have seen like stablecoin projects launching that and like really opting into more risk. Lastly, on the infra side, we have been working a lot on achieving different formats of anti-slashing on restaking services level. So operators would not be able to even perform things even by accident that might get them slashed. So that these are like some of the different levels that we're taking and working on in terms of like enhancing security and ensuring that users are the safest.
Yeah, I guess in terms of how we manage risk, on the asset side, we're built on Solana. So Solana hasn't enabled staking in that sense, or slashing in that sense, as people would usually understand on Ethereum. So that side, we have a lot lower risk on the slashing side. And since we are using it for more of like stake-weighted quality of service, so in that sense, there is no slashing risk of external systems. So in that sense, we chose to make sure that the yield on our validator is more heavily focused on running a very hyper-efficient validator to increase the yield, instead of trying to take on additional risk on the validator side, or like rehypothecating the assets. So on that side, we try to kind of make sure that we strike as much of a balance between risk versus like your yield. Same for our stablecoin when we launched it. So our yield-bearing stablecoin is built on top of US Treasury bills. So we have built the entire off-chain system to kind of handle redemption subscriptions. In that sense, US Treasury bills is very secure, very stable yield, which doesn't introduce too much risk for that. And the reason why we made this kind of design decisions is because when we do launch our Infinity ISM Layer 1, as Sol and as USD, these would be more of like the primitives of, hey, you have the highest yielding LST on-chain, as well as one of the safest assets that you can get, even in TradFi, like Treasury bills. So if people are going to build additional yield or additional more risky systems, lending, borrowing, perps, anything on top of the chain, that's the additional risk that users actively opt into and they choose from there. But on the very base level, we make sure that these yield-bearing assets are as secure as possible without introducing too much risk for the end user.
Okay. Now, just we just have the one question left, but we also have 2 minutes left. So I just wanted to hear about your forecast about which direction this restaking will go, and then please just try to also linked with your future of your company and the mission. But don't talk too much.
Of course. I'll make it as brief as possible. We do believe that there is a huge potential in securing future infrastructure to provide better services and better serve the users and enhance the UX. What lacks in the UX today on Ethereum especially is scale, speed, and like connectivity. We're bringing all of this within our unified product suite that unifies yield and also interactivity and the UX across the whole landscape. And thanks to that, to these services, we're going to provide more yield to our stakers. So this is the future we're working on. We do believe in the based app chain future, and we're one of the protocols that are closely working with the Ethereum Foundation and Ethereum Monetary Forum to push it forward.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I'm very excited for where restaking is going. And I think that's what I was talking about, the convergence between the more speculative side of where the yield is coming from and more grounded on like the shared security in that actually delivering. In terms of us and like where we're heading, what else we're building, how much I can say at this moment is that we have been building really fast over the past year since we started, and we launched our bridge recently. That's the first canonical bridge on Solana that's meant for SVM. So completely no off-chain like databases and stuff. It was completely done on-chain. So we launched the bridge. Our DevNet's live, testnet's coming very soon, and we're looking forward to launching the application that we're going to build on our own chain, as well as launching our testnet live soon. Yeah, and then I guess that's mostly on the chain. I think that's probably the thing that we're very, very focused on, and one I'm personally very, very excited for.
Oh, thank you. So time is already just the out of. So the last words I have to say is to thank you for participation, and then here is the end of our panel discussion. And please give them just our panelists another just big applause. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.